Claire hadn't expected the world to feel so heavy the moment she stepped into the Abbott estate that afternoon. Her chest was tight, her palms clammy, and though she had told herself 100 times she could handle this, the truth was she wasn't ready. She had carried secrets for so long that they had begun to feel like part of her skin, stitched into her very being, and one of those secrets was standing in the doorway of the living room, a young girl with curious eyes and an innocence that hadn't yet been touched by the chaos of Genoa City. Claire froze, every breath stuck in her throat, because she knew exactly who that child was. It wasn't just any child. It was her daughter. And seeing her here, in this house filled with people who already had their suspicions about her, set off a panic inside Claire so strong she thought her knees might give out from under her. She clutched the back of a chair, trying to steady herself, but her eyes never left the girl. The child's hair was long and golden, falling in waves that reminded Claire of herself when she was younger, before the mistakes, before the schemes, before the years had hardened her into someone who constantly looked over her shoulder. Her features were delicate yet strong, and Claire's heart ached with recognition. She wanted to reach out, to hold her, to finally claim what had been denied to her for so long. But terror outweighed every maternal instinct, because with her daughter standing here, the door to the past was blown wide open. Questions would come. Accusations would follow. And there was one person in Genoa City who could destroy her entire world with a single word: Noah Newman, the man she once loved, the man who had walked away, the man who didn't even know that he was connected to the little girl now staring back at Claire. Noah had been the kind of love Claire once thought would save her, but instead, their romance had ended in heartbreak, mistrust, and choices she couldn't take back. She remembered the night she left him, the tears that blurred her vision as she packed her things, the promises she whispered to herself that it was for the best. She had been young, reckless, and desperate to prove she could stand on her own. But standing on her own came with consequences, and 9 months later, she had been forced to make the most impossible decision of her life. Giving up her child had been the only way to protect her, or so she had convinced herself. Yet here she was, years later, staring at the living proof of her past choices, and the weight of it crushed her like a tidal wave. The panic in her chest twisted into fear when she realized others in the room were beginning to notice her reaction. Summer tilted her head, her sharp instincts immediately picking up on the tension. Nikki glanced from Claire to the child, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. And then, as if fate had a cruel sense of timing, Noah himself walked through the front door. Claire's heart nearly stopped. His presence filled the room the way it always had, effortlessly drawing attention, commanding the air without even trying. His gaze landed on the child first, softening with curiosity, before shifting to Claire. The recognition in his eyes wasn't full yet, but it was building, like clouds rolling in before a storm. Claire's stomach churned, and she felt herself trembling. She couldn't let him see through her, not yet, not until she figured out how to control this disaster waiting to unfold. Noah's voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that made Claire's pulse race. "Claire, what's going on here?" he asked, his eyes darting between her pale face and the girl who had captured everyone's attention. Claire opened her mouth, but no words came out. It felt as if the air had been sucked from her lungs. Her panic was so raw that she thought everyone must be able to hear the pounding of her heart. The girl tilted her head, confusion flickering in her young eyes, and for one terrifying moment, Claire thought she might speak the truth out loud, the truth Claire had hidden for years. The silence stretched too long, and Claire felt the pressure mounting with every second. Noah stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, his eyes searching hers with a mixture of suspicion and something else, something that reminded her of the nights they used to spend together, whispering dreams they thought would last forever. She blinked rapidly, trying to ground herself, but her body felt like it was betraying her. Her hands shook, her throat tightened, and she knew she was seconds away from unraveling. Claire's entire world hinged on one impossible choice: tell the truth and risk losing everything, or lie once more and hope the people in this room believed her. The world, for Claire Grace, had recently been a study in extremes, a violent pendulum swing between the abject terror of a life built on a lie and the serene, almost unbelievable comfort of finding her true home. The Newman family, a dynasty she had been taught to despise, had instead opened their arms, offering not just forgiveness but a fervent, protective love. Victoria Newman, in particular, had embraced her role as a mother with a ferocity that left Claire breathless with gratitude. Each day in the penthouse was a lesson in belonging, a quiet dismantling of the defenses she had spent a lifetime constructing. The lingering shadows of her Aunt Jordan's manipulation were being slowly chased away by the consistent, warm light of family. It was a fragile peace, to be sure, but it was peace nonetheless, and Claire clung to it with the desperation of someone who had known only its opposite. This hard-won equilibrium was precisely what made the sight before her so utterly catastrophic. It was not a dramatic scene, there were no raised voices or ominous figures lurking in the shadows. It was, in fact, the very normality of it that served as the most effective trigger. She was perhaps looking out the window of the penthouse, watching the city move below, or maybe she was simply crossing the lobby of the Grand Phoenix, her mind occupied with the pleasant trivialities of her new life. And then she saw them. Her daughter, Katie Abbott, was a burst of joyful motion, her small hand securely tucked into the larger one of the man guiding her. The man was Noah Newman. His face, kind and familiar, was bent down towards Katie, listening to some childish story with a smile that was both gentle and genuine. He was her uncle, a beloved member of the family she had just joined, and he was wonderful with children. Logically, Claire knew this. But logic had just been vaporized by a surge of pure, unadulterated panic. The air left her lungs in a silent rush. The world did not so much narrow as it did fracture, the present moment splintering into 1,000 shards of the past. Noah's face, here and now, overlapped perfectly with the memory of another boy, another time. It was a face from a chapter of her life she had worked tirelessly to bury, a chapter written in the naive script of first love and the devastating ink of subsequent trauma. Seeing him now, connected so innocently and yet so profoundly to her child, was not merely a surprise, it was an existential threat. It was the past, in all its complexity and pain, reaching its long arm directly into the heart of her carefully constructed present and grasping the single most precious thing she had. The panic was not a simple emotion but a cascade of them, a torrent that flooded every synapse. The first and most primal was fear. A deep, instinctual fear for Katie's safety. This was not a fear of Noah himself, she knew, on some level, that he was a good man, but a fear of what his presence represented. He was a living, breathing link to a history Claire had deemed too dangerous, too volatile, to ever be allowed near her daughter. Her entire motherhood had been built on a foundation of protection, of keeping Katie safe from the fallout of her own tumultuous beginnings. Noah's proximity felt like a breach in that vital wall. He was a walking repository of a past that contained pain, abandonment, and the machinations of Jordan. To have him holding Katie's hand was to have that past holding Katie's hand, and the terror of that connection was paralyzing. Beneath the fear surged a powerful and sickening wave of guilt. This was the guilt she had carried like a secret locket around her neck since the moment she learned she was pregnant. It was the guilt of secrets kept and a paternity unconfirmed. In her frantic mind, the sight of Noah and Katie together became a grotesque mockery of the truth she had withheld. What if he knew? What if, looking at Katie, some deep, genetic recognition stirred within him? The simple, loving interaction she witnessed felt like a lie she was perpetrating against them both. She was denying a father his child and a child her true father, all for the sake of a safety that now felt terrifyingly fragile. The guilt was compounded by her newfound love for the Newmans. They had given her everything, a name, a home, unconditional acceptance. And how had she repaid them? By hiding a secret that involved one of their own. The betrayal felt immense, a dark stain on the pristine fabric of her new family. Then came the shame. This was an older, more ingrained emotion, a relic from the girl she used to be. Her relationship with Noah, though it had felt like everything at the time, had ended. The circumstances of that ending, tied to Jordan's influence and her own youthful mistakes, were a source of deep humiliation. To have that part of her history collide with her present role as a mother was intensely shaming. It felt like the irresponsible, confused girl she had been was suddenly judging the mother she was trying to become. She had wanted to present herself to the Newmans as a new person, someone worthy of their name, someone who had risen above her past. Noah's presence was a reminder that the past is not so easily escaped. He was a living reminder of her vulnerabilities, her poor judgments, and the pain she had both endured and caused. Woven through the fear, guilt, and shame was a desperate, clawing sense of déjà vu. It felt as though Jordan's poison was once again seeping into her life, not through direct action, but through the cruel coincidence of fate. Jordan had orchestrated so much of her misery, and now, it was as if her ghost was orchestrating this, forcing a confrontation Claire was psychologically unprepared to face. The feeling of being a pawn in a larger, malicious game returned with suffocating force. Just as she believed she had finally broken free, the strings were pulled again, and she was dancing to a tune she never wanted to hear. Amidst this internal maelstrom, one thought screamed louder than all others: revelation. The truth she had guarded so fiercely was now on the verge of exposure. Every second Noah spent with Katie felt like a countdown to an inevitable discovery. Would he notice the curve of her smile that mirrored his sister's? The specific shade of her eyes? A mannerism that was uniquely Newman? In the hothouse environment of Genoa City, where secrets have a half-life of approximately 5 minutes, the idea that this could remain hidden forever was a fantasy. Her panic was, at its core, the panic of someone watching the walls of their life begin to crack and knowing they are powerless to stop the flood. This moment of panic is far more than a simple plot point, it is the crucible in which Claire's entire future will be forged. Her reaction defines the immense conflict she now faces. Does she retreat into the old patterns of secrecy and self-preservation, perhaps even attempting to distance Katie from Noah, a move that would raise immediate and damning suspicions within the fiercely observant Newman clan? Or does she, fortified by the new strength her family has given her, choose the terrifying path of transparency? The latter option is fraught with its own perils. Confessing the truth to Noah, and by extension to the entire family, risks everything. It could alter her relationship with Victoria, who has embraced her as a daughter lost and found, not as the former lover of her son and the mother of his child. It could fundamentally reshape the family dynamics, creating new and potentially painful alliances and fractures. Furthermore, it forces Claire to confront the nature of her own motherhood. Her identity as Katie's mother has been her sole, unwavering constant. To introduce Noah as the father is to share that identity, to relinquish a portion of the control that has been her security. It means integrating the darkest chapter of her past with the brightest part of her present. The panic she experiences is the visceral recognition of this monumental upheaval. It is the death rattle of her old, secretive life and the traumatic birth pang of a new, honest, but terrifyingly uncertain one. For Noah, this impending revelation is equally transformative, though he remains blissfully unaware of the seismic shift heading his way. His character, often portrayed as the family's gentle and somewhat nomadic artist, is poised for his greatest challenge. A confirmed paternity would instantly redefine him. It would ground the wanderer, presenting him with the ultimate responsibility and connection. His relationships with everyone, especially his parents Nick and Sharon, and his Aunt Victoria, would be irrevocably changed. He would no longer be just the agreeable son and brother, he would be a father, a co-parent, and a central figure in a new generational branch of the Newman family. Ultimately, Claire's panic upon seeing Noah with her daughter is a masterful piece of psychological storytelling. It transcends a mere soap opera trope of a hidden paternity reveal. It is a raw and relatable human moment that explores the profound weight of the past, the paralyzing fear of losing what we hold most dear, and the terrifying courage required to build an authentic future. It illustrates that sometimes the greatest threats to our happiness are not external villains, but the unhealed wounds and buried secrets we carry within us. Claire's journey forward will be a testament to whether the love and acceptance she has found with the Newmans is powerful enough to not only withstand the shock of this truth but to help her integrate it, transforming a source of panic into a foundation for a more complete and honest life. The path ahead is one of unbearable tension, but it is also the only path that leads away from a life lived in fear and toward one built on the fragile, but ultimately unshakable, ground of truth.